The world is not fair. And the sooner you accept this brutal truth, the sooner you stop wasting energy on meaningless battles. Right now, while you're watching this, someone less skilled than you, less intelligent than you, less qualified than you, is converting your enemies into their allies. Not because they're better, because they understand something you've been ignoring. Enemies are resources waiting to be conquered psychologically. Every time you treat an adversary as permanent opposition, you're limiting your strategic options. Every time you burn bridges with people who oppose you, you're eliminating potential assets. Every time you respond to hostility with hostility, you're playing the game exactly how they expect you to play it. And you're losing opportunities to transform resistance into loyalty, opposition into advantage, enemies into tools you control. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Keeping enemies is expensive. Maintaining conflicts drains your resources, divides your attention, and creates ongoing threats you have to monitor constantly. Converting an enemy into an ally doesn't just eliminate a threat. It doubles your advantage. You remove one obstacle while gaining one supporter. That's not compromise. That's strategic domination disguised as reconciliation. I am Niccolò Machiavelli. 500 years ago, I walked through Renaissance Italy, watching princes waste armies fighting enemies they could have conquered psychologically. I observed rulers who believed strength meant crushing opposition permanently, never understanding that the greatest victories happen when your enemy chooses to serve you willingly. I learned something critical. The most dangerous opponent isn't the one you destroy. It's the one you never thought to convert. In this video, I'm going to share 5 ruthless principles of psychological conquest that transform adversaries into loyal allies. This isn't about becoming likable. This isn't about being nice to people who oppose you. This is about strategic manipulation, conducted so skillfully that your enemies believe serving you was their idea. About understanding that loyalty obtained through psychological dominance is more reliable than loyalty obtained through friendship. About mastering the dark art of making people who once opposed you now defend you with their lives. The strategy of psychological conquest. Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Italy, surrounded by constantly shifting alliances, where yesterday's enemy became today's ally through strategic necessity. He watched rulers who understood that political power wasn't about eliminating all opposition. It was about converting opposition into service. The most powerful princes didn't destroy every threat. They transformed threats into assets through calculated psychological manipulation. Human nature hasn't changed. People who oppose you today can serve you tomorrow if you understand the psychological mechanisms that govern loyalty, resentment, and allegiance. Your enemies aren't fixed obstacles. They're movable pieces on a chessboard. And every enemy you convert doesn't just stop attacking you. They start defending you against others because they've invested their identity in their new alliance with you. Most people think converting enemies requires weakness, compromise, or surrender. That's backward. Converting enemies requires demonstrating such overwhelming strategic superiority that serving you becomes more attractive than opposing you. It requires understanding what your enemy values, what they fear, and what they need, then providing it in exchange for their loyalty while making the transaction feel like their victory. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I refuse to waste resources on permanent enemies. 1. Demonstrate power before offering peace. Let's start with something uncomfortable. When you approach an enemy from a position of weakness, offering reconciliation or alliance, they see opportunity to exploit you. When you approach from a position of demonstrated power, offering the same reconciliation, they see wisdom in accepting it. The difference isn't what you're offering, it's the context of power surrounding the offer. Think about the last time someone who opposed you suddenly wanted peace. Were you winning or losing when they approached? If you were losing, they were probably maneuvering to finish you off strategically. If you were winning, they were calculating that alliance was safer than continued opposition. Power changes how every gesture is interpreted. Here's what happens when you try to convert enemies from weakness. They smell blood. They interpret your offer of alliance as desperation. They calculate that they can extract more from you by continuing to oppose you than by accepting your offer. Your attempt at psychological conquest becomes evidence of your vulnerability. And they press harder. When you demonstrate power first, then offer conversion, everything changes. Your enemy isn't responding to desperation. They're responding to demonstrated capability. They're calculating, this person could destroy me. But instead, they're offering alliance. That's either strategic wisdom or a trap. Either way, accepting is safer than continuing to fight someone who's already proven they can win. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." This principle applies perfectly to converting enemies. You cannot convert someone who doesn't respect your power. Fear creates the foundation. The offer of alliance becomes the bridge. But without the fear, the bridge leads nowhere. Most people try to convert enemies through kindness, reason, or moral appeals. They explain why alliance benefits everyone. They emphasize common ground. They apologize for past conflicts. And their enemy laughs internally while calculating how to exploit this weakness, because they've just been handed evidence that you're desperate for their approval. Dominant strategists do something different. They demonstrate overwhelming power first. They win publicly. They show their enemy exactly what continuing opposition costs. Then, from that position of established dominance, they extend an offer. You can continue losing, or you can join me and win together. The enemy doesn't accept because they like you. They accept because opposing you has become expensive and serving you offers advantages. One approach says, "Please be my ally, I need you." The other says, "Join me or continue losing, choose wisely." One broadcasts desperation. The other demonstrates control. One gets exploited. The other converts enemies. Let me give you a concrete example. Two professionals compete for influence in an organization. The first person, losing ground, approaches their rival, suggesting they work together for mutual benefit. The rival sees weakness and intensifies their campaign. The second person, after securing several high-profile victories, approaches their rival with the same suggestion. Now the rival sees pragmatism. They've already lost several battles. Continuing to fight means more losses. Accepting means access to the winner's growing influence. Same offer, different context, different result. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Nobody converts to serve someone they perceive as weak. Conversion requires demonstrated superiority that makes alliance more attractive than opposition. Your power isn't optional for psychological conquest. It's the foundation. Listen to that again. Let that sink in. If you want to convert enemies, you must first make them respect your ability to hurt them. Then offer them the chance to benefit from that same power. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I demonstrate power, then offer alliance. 2. Give them victory in surrender. Here's something most strategists miss. People won't convert to serve you if conversion feels like defeat. But they'll eagerly convert if you frame their surrender as strategic victory. Your enemy needs to believe that joining you wasn't submission. It was intelligent adaptation. It was them outthinking everyone else by recognizing opportunity. Think about anyone who's ever changed sides in a conflict you've witnessed. Did they frame it as, I lost, so I'm joining the winner? Or did they frame it as, I've recognized a better path? Or, I've been convinced by superior logic? People need narratives that protect their ego. Your job is to provide that narrative as part of the conversion process. Here's what happens when you frame conversion as surrender. Your enemy's ego resists. Even if they know logically that serving you is smarter than opposing you, their identity rebels against the narrative of defeat. They'd rather continue losing than accept a story where they're publicly submitting. Pride becomes more valuable than pragmatism. And you lose the conversion opportunity. When you frame conversion as strategic wisdom, everything changes. You're not asking them to admit defeat. You're inviting them to demonstrate superior intelligence by recognizing what others haven't. That the real power lies in alliance with you. You're giving them a narrative where they're not the loser joining the winner. They're the wise strategist recognizing opportunity before others do. Machiavelli understood this. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel. Your enemy cares intensely about how their conversion appears. Give them a story that makes them look intelligent rather than defeated, and they'll convert eagerly while defending their decision to everyone who questions it. Most people force enemies to publicly acknowledge defeat as condition for alliance. Admit you were wrong. Acknowledge I was right. Then we can work together. This satisfies ego, but destroys conversion potential. The enemy would rather continue fighting than provide you that public victory, because the cost to their reputation is too high. Strategic dominators do something different. They frame the conversion as mutual recognition of strategic reality. We've both been fighting. We're both capable. Imagine what we accomplish together instead of against each other. They give their enemy an exit ramp that doesn't require humiliation. The enemy takes it because you've made conversion feel like wisdom rather than surrender. One approach says, admit I won, then join me. The other says, let's both win together, starting now. One satisfies your ego and fails strategically. The other achieves psychological conquest by protecting theirs. Let me give you a specific scenario. A business competitor has been publicly opposing your strategies. You've won the major battles. Now you want to convert them. Approach 1. You were wrong. I was right. Now let's work together. They'll resist because accepting means public humiliation. Approach 2. We've both learned things through this competition. Combining what you know with what I know creates something neither of us could build alone. Now they can convert while framing it as strategic evolution rather than defeat. Same result, different narrative. Higher conversion success. Here's the brutal truth. Your ego is costing you allies. Every time you force an enemy to publicly acknowledge defeat before converting, you're prioritizing your satisfaction over strategic advantage. You're making conversion harder because you need them to admit you won. Strategic dominators don't need that validation. They just need the enemy serving them. The tragedy is that you think making enemies admit defeat proves your dominance. It doesn't. It proves you don't understand how psychological conquest actually works. Real dominance is having your former enemy defend you publicly, while believing it was their intelligent choice to do so. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I convert enemies by giving them dignified exit paths. 3. Make them dependent on you immediately. Here's the dark psychology nobody discusses. Converting an enemy means nothing if they can leave the alliance without cost. True conversion requires creating immediate dependency that makes leaving you more painful than staying loyal. You need to embed yourself into their success so thoroughly that betraying you means destroying themselves. Think about alliances you've seen fall apart. What happened? Usually someone decided the alliance no longer served them. They had options. They could walk away or even betray the alliance without suffering immediately. Dependency was never established. The alliance was convenience, not necessity. And convenience changes when circumstances change. Here's what happens when you convert enemies without creating dependency. They stay loyal only as long as it's convenient. The moment opposing you becomes more advantageous than serving you, they flip. Your conversion was temporary. You didn't actually transform an enemy into an ally. You just negotiated a temporary truce that lasted until better options emerged for them. When you create immediate dependency during conversion, everything changes. Your new ally can't betray you without destroying their own interests. You've positioned yourself as essential to their success. Their victories run through you. Their resources depend on access you provide. Their reputation is now tied to their alliance with you. Betrayal isn't just difficult, it's suicidal. Machiavelli once said, "The prince who relies upon their words without having otherwise provided for security is ruined." Converting an enemy based on promises alone is foolish. Convert them, then immediately make them dependent on you through structural integration. Give them responsibilities that matter. Share resources they need. Connect them to your network in ways that make you irreplaceable. Lock them in. Most people celebrate conversion as the end point. We're allies now. The conversion worked. They treat the initial agreement as complete victory. Then 6 months later, that ally betrays them or simply drifts back to opposition because no actual dependency was created. The conversion was psychological theatre without structural reinforcement. Dominant strategists understand conversion is the beginning, not the end. They immediately integrate the new ally into systems that create mutual dependency. They give the new ally responsibilities where their success depends on your success. They share resources but maintain control of essential elements. They create situations where betraying you means losing everything they've gained through the alliance. One approach says, "We're allies now based on our agreement." The other says, "We're allies now, and here's why leaving me would destroy you." One relies on words. The other builds structural dependency that makes betrayal irrational. Let me give you a concrete scenario. You convert a rival in your organization to become an ally. Weak conversion. You agree to stop competing and start collaborating based on trust. 6 months later, they betray you when another opportunity emerges. Strong conversion. You immediately involve them in projects where they get credit, but you control key resources. You introduce them to important contacts, but you're the bridge to those relationships. You share information they need, but maintain your position as the source. Now they're dependent. Betraying you means losing access to everything you've provided. The alliance is structural, not just psychological. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Conversion without dependency is just a temporary agreement waiting to expire. Your converted enemy will stay loyal only as long as loyalty serves them better than betrayal. You need to make loyalty serve them permanently by making yourself irreplaceable. Listen to that again. Let that sink in. Every converted enemy needs to wake up, knowing that their continued success depends on staying loyal to you. That's not friendship. That's strategic architecture. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I create dependency, not just agreement. 4. Reward loyalty publicly. Punish betrayal privately. Here's the mechanism that maintains converted enemies as loyal allies. Public reward systems that make others want what your converted enemy has gained, combined with private punishment systems that remind everyone what betrayal costs. You need both. Public rewards create incentive for others to convert. Private punishments create fear that prevents reconversion. Think about organizations or groups where loyalty is exceptionally strong. What do they do consistently? They celebrate loyalty loudly. Promotions are public. Rewards are visible. Recognition is ostentatious. Everyone can see exactly what loyalty produces. Meanwhile, betrayal is handled quietly. People disappear from positions. Opportunities dry up. Access gets restricted. It happens, but it happens privately enough that the betrayer can't rally sympathy or support. Here's what happens when you punish betrayal publicly. You create martyrs. Your former ally becomes a sympathetic figure who stood up to you or refused to compromise their principles. Other potential converts watch and calculate that converting to you comes with the risk of public humiliation if things go wrong. Your punishment, intended to deter betrayal, actually deters conversion. You've made yourself look dangerous to ally with. When you reward publicly and punish privately, you create asymmetric perception. People see all the benefits of serving you and few of the costs of betraying you. This seems counterintuitive, but it works psychologically. Potential converts see current allies thriving publicly. They want that. They convert. Meanwhile, betrayal still carries costs, but those costs are invisible enough that they don't prevent initial conversion. You maximize conversions while still maintaining discipline. Machiavelli observed, "Injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that their ill savour being less lasting may give less offence. When punishment is necessary, do it completely but quietly. Don't make a spectacle. Remove the person's access, influence, and opportunities systematically but without public drama. They lose everything, but you don't create a dramatic narrative they can use to position themselves as victim. Most people do the opposite. They reward loyalty privately with quiet appreciation and punish betrayal publicly with dramatic confrontations. I trusted you, and you betrayed me. They announce the betrayal. They explain what happened. They warn others publicly about the betrayer. This feels satisfying, but it's strategically stupid. You've just advertised that allying with you comes with public humiliation risk if things go wrong. Strategic dominators invert this pattern. They throw parties celebrating loyal allies. They promote them publicly. They tell stories about their allies' contributions. Everyone sees the benefits. Meanwhile, betrayers just quietly lose access. Projects they were involved in move forward without them. Meetings they used to attend happen without their presence. Opportunities stop appearing. It's systematic but not dramatic. They fade rather than explode. One system says, "Look at this betrayer. See what happens when you cross me." The other says, "Look at this loyal ally. See what happens when you serve me well." One deters conversion through fear. The other attracts conversion through desire while maintaining quiet discipline. Let me give you a practical example. Your converted ally has performed well. Weak response. You thank them privately and move on. Strong response. You publicly credit them in a meeting. You introduce them to someone influential, specifically citing their good work. You make their success visible. Now others see what serving you produces. Meanwhile, if someone betrays you, weak response. You publicly call them out and explain what they did. Strong response. You simply stop including them. Stop offering opportunities. Stop responding to their requests. They become irrelevant quietly. No drama, no martyrdom, just systematic isolation. Here's the brutal truth. Most people's ego makes them punish betrayers publicly to satisfy their need for revenge. This feels good emotionally, but costs you strategically. Every public punishment deters future conversions because potential converts calculate the risk. Strategic dominators sacrifice emotional satisfaction for tactical advantage. The tragedy is that you think public punishment demonstrates strength. It doesn't. It demonstrates that you prioritize your feelings over strategic effectiveness. Real strength is systematically destroying someone who betrayed you while making it look like they just naturally failed. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I reward visibly. I punish invisibly. Never fully trust. Always verify. Here's the final principle that protects you from reconversion. Once an enemy, always potentially an enemy. Conversion is strategic, not magical. You've changed their incentives and their position, but you haven't changed their fundamental nature. Converted enemies serve you because serving you benefits them, not because they love you. The moment that calculation changes, they'll flip again unless you're monitoring and managing them continuously. Think about your most loyal allies currently. Are they people who've always been with you? Or converted enemies? If they're converted enemies, ask yourself, are you monitoring them? Are you verifying their loyalty through their actions? Or have you started trusting them as if they were lifelong friends? If you've stopped verifying, you're vulnerable to reconversion. Here's what happens when you fully trust converted enemies. You stop monitoring them. You give them access to sensitive information. You include them in strategic planning without verification. You treat them like they're fundamentally loyal when they're actually strategically loyal. And when circumstances change and their strategic calculation shifts, they betray you. But now they can do much more damage because you gave them access while you weren't verifying. When you maintain strategic skepticism with converted enemies, you protect yourself. You give them responsibilities and rewards, yes. You integrate them into your systems, absolutely. But you also verify continuously. You watch what they do, not just what they say. You test their loyalty periodically. You maintain backup plans for if they reconvert. You never become so dependent on them that their betrayal would destroy you. Machiavelli would remind us, men are so simple and obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find someone who will let himself be deceived. Don't let yourself be that person. Just because someone serves you now doesn't mean they'll serve you forever. Circumstances change, incentives shift, better offers emerge, and converted enemies will always calculate whether staying loyal serves them better than reconverting to opposition or converting to serve someone else. Most people convert enemies, then drop their guard completely. We're allies now. I can trust them fully. They give converted enemies the same access they give lifelong loyal allies. They stop monitoring. They stop testing. They treat strategic alliance as if it were genuine friendship. Then they're shocked when betrayal happens. They shouldn't be shocked. They just forgot what converted enemies actually are. Temporarily aligned interests, not transformed hearts. Dominant strategists never forget. They reward converted enemies generously. They integrate them thoroughly. They create dependency systematically. But they never fully trust. They verify continuously. They maintain monitoring systems. They test loyalty periodically with small opportunities to betray that cost little if taken. They always have contingency plans for reconversion. They treat converted enemies with generous suspicion. Give them much, trust them little, verify everything. One approach says, "You're my ally now. I trust you completely." The other says, "You're my ally now. Show me continuously, through actions, that you deserve the position I've given you." One gets betrayed eventually. The other maintains control permanently. Let me give you a specific scenario. You've converted a former rival and brought them into your inner circle. Weak management. You share everything with them. Include them in all strategic planning and treat them exactly like your most trusted allies. When circumstances change and they receive a better offer from someone else, they betray you and take your strategic information with them. Strong management. You give them real responsibilities and real rewards, but you compartmentalize information. They know what they need to know for their role, but not everything. You test their loyalty occasionally with low-stakes opportunities to betray that you're monitoring. You maintain relationships with others who could replace them if necessary. When temptation appears, they know you're watching, and that betrayal would be detected and punished. They stay loyal not just because it benefits them, but because betrayal has immediate costs you've architected. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The converted enemy who seems most loyal is often the one most carefully calculating their next move. Your trust in them isn't returned with trust in you. It's returned with calculation about whether continuing to serve you remains their best option. Act accordingly. The tragedy is that you probably want to believe converted enemies can become genuine friends. They can't. Not really. They can become valuable, dependable, long-term strategic allies. But the foundation is strategic benefit, not emotional connection. Forget that, and you'll pay the price when their calculation changes. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I integrate allies. I verify loyalty always. The architecture of psychological conquest. If you don't master the dark art of converting enemies into allies, you'll waste resources fighting battles that never needed to happen. This isn't about being nice to people who oppose you. This isn't about compromise or weakness. This is about strategic psychological dominance, conducted so skillfully that your enemies choose to serve you while believing it was their intelligent decision. The world doesn't reward people who destroy every enemy. It rewards people who convert enemies into assets, opposition into advantage, threats into tools. Right now, every enemy you have represents wasted potential. You're spending energy fighting them when you could be channeling their energy towards serving you. That's not just inefficient. It's strategically incompetent. Stop treating enemies as permanent obstacles. Stop burning bridges with people who oppose you. Stop responding to hostility with pure hostility. Stop wasting resources on conflicts that could become alliances. Stop satisfying your ego at the expense of strategic advantage. Start demonstrating overwhelming power before offering conversion. Start framing surrender as strategic wisdom that protects enemy ego. Start creating immediate structural dependency that makes betrayal irrational. Start rewarding loyalty publicly while punishing betrayal privately. Start treating converted allies with generous suspicion that verifies continuously. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The greatest rulers didn't destroy all opposition. They converted opposition into service through calculated psychological manipulation. They made enemies compete for the privilege of serving them. They built empires not just through conquest, but through conversion. And their power was multiplied because every converted enemy became a defender of the system that had conquered them. The world will never reward naive trust or permanent conflict. It will mock those who either trust everyone blindly or fight everyone endlessly. But those who master psychological conquest, who understand how to convert strategic opposition into strategic alliance, who know how to make enemies serve them willingly, those people accumulate power that others can't comprehend, because they're not just playing the game. They're rewriting the rules by turning every opponent into another piece under their control. Your enemies are resources you haven't converted yet. Every person opposing you right now has skills, connections, and capabilities you could be using. Every conflict you're maintaining is draining your energy while making someone else stronger. Strategic dominance isn't about winning every fight. It's about ending fights by converting fighters into soldiers serving your cause. If this video opened your eyes to strategic opportunities you've been missing, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to understand how psychological conquest actually works. And subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep having these real conversations about power that nobody else wants to have. Outthink the crowd. Convert your opposition. Rule strategically. Now I want you to drop this final affirmation in the comments. I convert enemies into assets, opposition into advantage. Now go be that strategist. The world is waiting for you to stop fighting and start conquering psychologically.